Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. So we are hearing the growth of EVs are over. Well, mostly from mainstream medias and legacy automakers. But now both Bloomberg and IEA are out saying this is just not true. And they both think that the low numbers in Q1 are just a blimp on the radar. And the EV growth will continue. But even though IEA are saying that EV volumes will tenfold over the next 6 years, I still think they are too conservative. But let me show you why, and let's check it all out, and let's dive right in. So we are hearing the growth of EVs are over, mostly from mainstream media and legacy automakers. But now both Bloomberg and IEA are out saying this is just not true, and they both think the low numbers in Q1 are just a blimp on the radar. In a report on Tuesday, Bloomberg said the Q1 sales data makes the supposed EV slowdown in the US look like a blimp on the radar, as many automakers saw sales continues to increase year over year. Concerns swirling around demand haven't seemed to affect consumers' purchase, and while Tesla's deliveries was disappointing to some, the automakers remains the only high-volume EV maker in the US. As Cox Automotive Director of Industry Insight, Stephanie said, "We are still seeing growth in demand, just not at the same pace for every brand. Right now, Tesla doesn't have any new models, Ford doesn't have a lot in the pipeline, but Hyundai, BMW, Kia, Cadillac, they are really moving the needle forward." But before you all start screaming, "Look, we told you, the competition is coming," well, look at this chart. Tesla is so far ahead, it's not even funny. But Bloomberg does expect nice growth for the rest of the year, as you can see on this chart. Bloomberg is the black line here, but IEA expects even higher growth. They expect EV to double from Q4 2023 to Q4 2025. And IEA expect EVs to increase almost tenfold by 2030 under current policies. According to their report, that looks as input for 3 potential scenarios based on the global energy climate model. The stated policy scenario, looking at the currently in place policies sector by sector and country by country. The announced pledged scenario, which assume the government and industry climate commitments are met in full and on time, and the net zero emission by 2050 scenario that looks at specific emission trajectory set to keep the temperature increase below 1.5 degrees Celsius. According to the report's stated policy scenarios, EVs comprise roughly about 50% of the car sales globally and are expected to increase to 40% by 2030. But that is according to the state policies and not looking at customers' demand and the value of the cars. So I still expect this to be much higher, but I will get back to that later. But even though the legacy automakers and mainstream medias and automotive analysts are saying EV sales are down, that is simply not true. And both Bloomberg and IEA and EV volumes think we will see continued growth going forward. EV volumes expect the global growth in 2024 to be 25%. So that is actually quite nice growth. They are usually very good at predicting EV sales numbers just 1 year forward, as they have done through the last 5 years. So yes, it is not the same kind of huge growth in percentage that we are used to, but that is to be expected. The longer we get up the disruptive S-curve, the smaller the percentage in growth will be. Last year we grew 35%, and now EV volumes expect 25%. Well, that is a decline in growth, right? Well, not exactly, because the amount is still the same, last year we went from 10.5 million to 14.1 million EVs sold, so EVs grew with 3.6 million units in 2023, and EV volumes expect 17.7 million units in 2024. So that is another growth of 3.6 million. So yes, the percentage is down, but the units are the same, still growing by millions in sales. So I agree completely with Bloomberg and IEA that the slowdown we have seen in Q1 was a blip on the radar, and in 2025 no one will remember what happened in Q1 of 2024. But I don't agree with their prediction of 40% in 2030, because I also look at the fact that EVs will soon become the obvious choice for everyone, and I will get back to that in a minute. So there is more at play here than just these policies that are put in place with incentives, ban of new ICE cars and ban of ICE cars in cities around Europe. There is also the demand that will increase for EVs, as well as ICE cars will become the flip phone soon and nobody wants them. And IEA does have a track record of getting exponential growth wrong. IEA has been wrong about solar adoption, for example, every single year for more than 20 years by more than 30%. So we have to take IEA's prediction with a grain of salt, as they are usually predicting in a linear fashion and therefore always get disruptive technologies wrong. Just like we saw with EIA, the US Energy Information Administration, and what do? Well, as they write on their website, independent statistic and analysis. So these guys should be able to do some forecasting of what is going to happen, because that is kind of what they do. But in 2014, EIA estimated the global annual sales of EVs, including hybrids, would be 200,000 units in 2022. So less than what Tesla on their own made in Q1 of 2022. Tesla made more EVs on their own in 2018, only 4 years later, than what the EIA predicted for all of 2022. Now that is some embarrassing prediction. They did only 2 short years later, in 2016, raise their target for 2022 tenfold to 2 million EVs in 2022. But still not enough. Only 2 years later, in 2018, the EV market was above 2 million in annual sales. How can they be so wrong in such a short time when this is what they do? Well, because they only expected linear growth. They didn't see the electric car as a disruptive technology. ARK Invest thought there would be 17 million EVs sold in 2022, but it ended up being 10.5 million vehicles, which included all the plug-in vehicles, as this was what they were trying to predict. So even though ARK Invest looks crazy for saying 17 million in 2022, because the others thought 2 million or less, well, even though ARK Invest was off by 6.5 million units, they are still closer than the 2 million from EIA that was 8.5 million off. And the forecast for EV volumes for 2024 is 17.7 million. So ARK Invest was right that this was an exponential disruption, but they were just off by 2 years in looking almost a decade out in the future. So that was not too bad. EIA, on the other hand, they were simply just off. So that is why we can't just take EIA or IEA's prediction as the truth. They are usually wrong on every technology that sees exponential growth. So I still think EIA will be conservative on this one, as I think EVs will become much cheaper even on the sticker price in only like 2 to 3 years. So let's just say 3 years is when EVs will truly hit the price parity on the sticker price globally, because in China they already are, and then you save a lot more because of the true cost of ownership. And EVs will of course become better in 3 years as well. ARK Invest predicts that the charging time will become pretty much on par with ICE vehicles fueling, as they predict 200 miles of range, charged in only 4 minutes in 2027. In 2022, we had charging that could do 200 miles in 15 minutes. So what you see on this chart is actually the charging speed of the best charging vehicles on the planet. And we have seen in China, chargers being able to deliver 550 kilowatts of charging, and the Chinese EV brand Aeron has an EV that can handle that kind of charging speeds. And we do know that Tesla can already charge about 175 miles in just 15 minutes. So the prediction is that the last pro for an ICE car that can fuel up in 5 minutes will go away in only about 3 years. So then there is literally no reason anymore for anyone to buy an ICE car. The demand for ICE cars will drop off a cliff. You will have to be financially stupid to buy an ICE car at that point. Nothing about them will make sense anymore. They will become the flip phone of the car industry. So for EIA to think it will only be 40% of the market in 2030, including hybrids, just seems very unlikely in my view. We are, of course, all going to be wrong. It's just a question of how wrong will we be. But my prediction is still that we will be much closer to 80% than 40%. I don't really trust IEAs when it comes to predicting exponential growth, because they are usually underestimating those kinds of forecasts. It is not that these people are incapable of making prediction, it is just every time we are talking about a disruption, they get it wrong because they have a linear mindset. And exponential growth is very hard to wrap your head around. Just remember the example I gave in another video with the single rice corn on the chessboard that does a doubling on every square. Well, that single rice corn will become a pile of rice the size of Mount Everest in just 64 moves. That is exponential growth. Very, very difficult to understand. But the so-called experts being wrong is nothing new. This is pretty much what always happens when we talk about innovation and disruptive technologies. The experts and the insiders are usually the ones that dismiss disruptive opportunities because of the paradigm paralysis. It doesn't fit their world picture. The best example is probably Kodak, that not only got disrupted by the digital camera, but the ironic thing is, it was Kodak that invented the digital camera. But even though they did not see what was coming and dismissed the opportunity. So remember to do your own research when it comes to disruption, or at least look for guidance with someone who actually understands and works with innovations like Tony Seba or Ark Invest. If you use conventional forecast, the chance is you will be very far off the mark, especially when we look 5 to 10 years out in the future. Because 10 years with linear growth from 1 with 1 unit growth every year, well, that would get us to 10 units in 10 years, easy and simple to understand. But 10 years of exponential growth where the number doubles every year, well, in 10 years that 1 unit will not become 10 but 1,000. So the people that don't get exponential growth will be off by many orders of magnitude. And if Tesla is really on the cusp of solving full self-driving and will send robo-taxis on the street, well, Tesla could easily get close to those 20 million cars/cybercabs produced by 2030 or thereabout. So if Tesla is going to get just even close to that target, it is kind of ridiculous to think that the global EV sales will only be about 30 to 40 million units sold. Tesla would simply become too big. But let's see what will happen, and if we see the EV sales pick up again here in Q2, and if the EV sale will grow to 17.7 million in 2024. Because then the pace is not really slowing down, but keeping pace, and Q1 2024 will just be another blimp on the radar. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.